morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Tearing Down the Wall webinar with our special guest, Kanji. Before we begin today, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet on today. We pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Really excited to have special guests from Kanji today, Arek Dreyer and Weldon Dodd from Kanji, two legends of the Apple and Mac admin community, and really excited to hear their vision of the current Apple ecosystem and how Kanji is helping to to drive the growth of Apple into the future. But I'd like to start just with a brief introduction about Mac Center. My name is Mark Santos. I'm the Managing Director here at Mac Center, and I've been involved with Mac Center for our entire 20-year history. Mac Center is an Apple-focused solutions provider helping organizations of all sizes implement and manage scalable, secure, and sustainable Apple workplace solutions. And Apple is in our DNA. We are aligned with Apple across all major accreditations, and most recently being recognized as one of a small handful of global partners to join the Apple Authorized Enterprise Reseller Program. This program and this accreditation is in recognition of our high technical and operational excellence and proven ability to be able to enable innovation, reduce complexity, and increase cost efficiency with Apple. We do this across four main pillars. Starting off with supply chain optimization, providing organizations with tailored procurements across the entire Apple product portfolio, but also covering infrastructure and entire end user compute. To support that, we provide a full range of managed IT services, from full managed options through to tailored endpoint management and security offerings. We wrap that up with our asset services, providing storage, logistics, redeployment, and a full suite of IT asset disposition and decommissioning services. We also provide a full range of professional services to help accelerate Apple at your workplace. We continue to develop deep relationships with the world's leading vendors, most recently becoming the first sign-on partner for Kanji in Australia. We're really excited about the partnership opportunities and what we've already been able to unlock in terms of providing services for our growing customer base. We continue to invest in our sales and technical enablement, and excited to continue to build our relationship for many years to come. And so with that, I'd love to be able to introduce to you Arek and Weldon from Kanji.
Thank you, Mark. It is great to be here. Thank you for the very generous introduction. We're very excited about our partnership and relationship with Mac Center. You've been around a long time, right? Really legends of the industry here in Australia and the surrounding area. So it's great for us to be with you. A little bit about myself. I'm Weldon Dodd. I'm the SVP of Community and Chief Evangelist for Kanji. I've been in and around Apple for 30 years. I started my career as a Mac admin in a university lab, and I've been in and around Apple ever since. And my colleague Arek joined me at Kanji shortly after me, about 3 years ago, 2-something years ago for Arek. And Arek, take a moment, please.
Hey, Weldon. Thanks again, Mark, for the introduction. Really happy to be a part of this. And just a little bit about myself. I joined Kanji after 23 years of being an independent consultant, trainer, integration consultant. I used to maintain the Mac OS Support Essentials course, or be one of the co-maintainers. Before that, I worked on Server Essentials, Mac OS 10 Directory Services book, and just been around the Apple ecosystem since before Mac OS 10. I'm a senior product engineer, and just really happy to be part of this conversation. Back to you, Weldon.
Awesome. Well, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was to share a bit about where we see the industry going and where we see Apple and some of the responsibilities or the job of being a Mac admin, how we see that evolving. And so we've got some slides to share with you today that will kind of walk through the way that we see things and where we see the future headed. There's a really great Wayne Gretzky quote. Wayne Gretzky was a Canadian hockey player who played in the National Hockey League, which contains teams in the United States and Canada together, and about skating to where the puck is going to be and not where it's been. I wasn't quite sure how hockey analogies or metaphors were going to land with our friends in Australia and in the surrounding area. So I was at a Special Olympics meet this past weekend where a number of athletes were competing in swimming and related events. And I thought that might work a little bit better with our friends in Australia. And one of the things I noticed was in the diving pool, they have a jet or a little, like almost a sprinkler, right, that sprays water across the surface of the pool. And it's there so that the diver can orient themselves as they're twisting and turning in the air. So they have a clear view of where they're going to enter the water and making sure that they're lined up, that they enter perfectly vertical, that they have their hands in the right position as they enter the water and all those things. And it struck me that that's a lot of what we're trying to do as IT admins. We're asked to perform a whole bunch of tricks to do really almost miraculous twists and turns to deliver the services and the apps and settings and configuration that our users need. And having that view of where the wall is or where the water is as you're approaching it is really useful, right? So that you make sure that you're set up for success when you hit that moment of decision that's really critical for your business, that you know where it is and you're ready for that moment. And so as we look at the future, we see the value here of tearing down this wall between IT and InfoSec. And we think this is the moment, right, when Mac admins and other people that are involved here need to be oriented, right, and to understand like where they're going to enter the water so they can be successful. So in the past, right, the IT team and the InfoSec team would operate somewhat independently. They had different mandates. InfoSec to secure the company and its users. Sometimes that was oriented around protecting the network perimeter and not allowing people inside the network perimeter. It then shifted to protecting cloud services. Over time, IT was very focused on delivering services to enable productivity to the end user. Okay, over time though, those two worlds are coming together. The InfoSec teams are increasingly focused on endpoint security because it is an existential threat to companies. We've seen things in the news about the endpoint and end users being the vector for attacks that threaten the entire organization. The same is true for IT. That endpoint is becoming their focus. With remote work, hybrid work, all those variations, it's increasingly clear that the endpoint is the center of user productivity. We've done a really good job of building cloud services, enabling email, file sharing, all those things over the last 5-10 years. But in order to continue to increase or improve end user productivity, the endpoint is where there's opportunity to improve or invest. So in order for this to come together, for IT and InfoSec to win, they need to be able to share data. The InfoSec team needs visibility into what's happening on the endpoints so that you can shorten the time to respond to an issue or an event or a threat. And then IT needs to be able to collaborate with InfoSec, right, so to maintain end user productivity. If you can't access remote services in a secure way, right? The end user is dead in the water. They're not going to be able to do their job. So both are needed. So their tools were built for a different world where they could operate somewhat independently from each other. We can see at times like the CSV shuffle that happens between teams where InfoSec produces a list of threats and devices that might be affected, and they ship that CSV over to a comma separated value file to the other team to look at and take an action on, and the same thing back and forth from maybe the endpoint management or device management team back to InfoSec about their progress or status. And that's simply not good enough for the future. So some tools try to work around this, make it a little easier to do this shuffle of information back and forth, but we think that's actually the wrong question, right? The right question is, what would it take to tear down the wall, to create harmony between these teams, to share information, to share knowledge, to share intelligence about the endpoint from both directions? So Kanji, again, the way that we see the world is that these two teams, IT and InfoSec, need to come together in order to make sure that the end users that use Apple devices can remain secure and productive. So the 5 pillars that we have here, device management is the core. Device management is the foundation for everything that we do. This is really relevant to Apple admins, those that manage Mac or iOS devices, because Apple's MDM protocol and the framework that it provides on the endpoint is what enables these security tools to work. MDM is the lever that allows us to get entitlements, access to the security technologies that drive all the tools that are being used. But on top of that, we see 4 key areas to develop: vulnerability management, endpoint detection and response, endpoint visibility, and endpoint compliance. Those are the things that we're trying to bring together in our platform. So the benefits, we feel, are potentially enormous, right? A comprehensive view of every endpoint that combines device intelligence with threat intelligence so that you have a shared view, a shared reality between IT and InfoSec. The ability to shorten that distance or collapse the distance between recognizing an issue and taking action on it. We think there's something really interesting and valuable to customers about bringing together threat detection and response with MDM actions, with access to those native platform APIs and protocols that Apple provides. The ability to reduce operational overhead, to make it easier for admins to do their job, to take action, the ability to use automation to reduce the amount of time that it takes. And then lastly, do this all in a way that provides a really nice Apple native experience. Mac Center, it's in the name, right? Our partners here understand that their customers want an experience that brings out the best in the devices that they chose. It's very common today for enterprises to allow a choice program where users are given the ability to pick the platform where they feel they can be most productive. And those users that pick Apple as their platform are choosing it for a reason. They prefer that experience that they get on that platform. They feel more productive in that environment. They appreciate details about how Apple devices work. And so picking tools and partners, vendors that understand what users are trying to get from that Apple native experience is really important, right? You don't want to provide a choice program and then take away or suppress or lock down and remove the benefits that people saw or drove their decision to pick an Apple device as their productivity platform. You want to empower that experience and enrich it and make it the best that it can. And so we take a lot of pride in focusing on the Apple platform for our solution and trying to provide the best possible experience for the admin who's using our tools, but also for the end user who experiences things like automatic software updates and patching and security tools and all that. We want them to have a great experience as well. So again, this is kind of the general shape of the way that we see things going. And as we look to the future, right, one of the things that we're hoping to provide is some of that visibility, right, to disturb the surface of the water so that you all and our customers and Mac admins around the world can understand when some of these things are going to hit, when they need to be ready for this moment to bring together their tooling and their solutions to provide the ability to both secure their Apple devices and to make sure that the users are productive while they're using them. So I'd like to bring in Arek Dreyer here just to talk a little bit more about where we see the industry going and Apple going, and some of the things maybe that are coming next for Kanji in our product.
Thanks, Weldon. Yeah, the velocity of improvements in Apple products is amazing. It's hard to keep up with, and we're super excited every time there's a new announcement. The developer conference, when that rolls around, usually in June, everyone in the Apple admin community is anticipating what new thing they're going to announce, what surprise they're going to reveal to us, and along with that velocity of improvements and change and user experience enhancements, we're seeing the continued adoption of Apple as a choice in enterprise and in business. And part of that is because executives in these organizations have a great experience with their iPhone or the Mac they use at home, and they want to extend that in their own organizations. And that's a challenge with IT departments and InfoSec departments that aren't necessarily up to speed with managing Apple devices. So what we're trying to do with our platform is provide a straightforward, easy to use solution. We solve problems that every Mac admin around the world faces, making it easy, off on, toggle off solution so that admins can focus on the problems that only they can solve for their organizations, because only they have the context of what's going on in their organization. Apple recently released a new website that's devoted to Apple in small business. Really excited to see that. Apple is known as a consumer company with privacy and security at the forefront for their devices, protecting that user experience, but they haven't taken their eye off the ball on Apple in business and in enterprise. We're seeing more resources from Apple devoted to that. We're seeing features that don't have anything really to do with the consumer, features that are dedicated to business and enterprise. And at Kanji, we're doing our best to incorporate those into the product, incorporate those into the experience so that the admin, the practitioner can provide a better experience for the user, and so that the user has a great experience using that Apple device. We want to make the IT and InfoSec teams look great. We want the users to feel the love from the teams that support them. And the last thing that I want to touch on in terms of trends is that security is becoming so important in organizations, and we're seeing more and more IT functions rolling up to a CISO, up to a Chief Information Security Officer role, and we think that's going to just increase over time. So those are the main things that I'm excited about.
That's great. I think, I think all of us that have been around for a while, right, have seen that Apple really has penetrated larger enterprises much more extensively than they have in the past. And that shift has been going on for a while. I appreciate that. Executives is a good call out, Eric. I think there's some other areas where we see broad adoption as well. Developers come to mind. Do you mind speaking about that for a moment? What are some of the advantages for developers and folks that use those kinds of tools?
Developers can get a Mac with the M2 with the Apple with a Mac with the Apple Silicon with that M2 chip, and the speed is just amazing. Developers compile quicker, can turn around and test what they've done, make sure that what they're working on, they're not waiting for their compiler to finish compiling. That's one huge win.
Yeah. So it's really nice for Apple, right, to be in this position where you have a really great end user experience and kind of productivity enhancing tools along with amazing hardware that is really leaps and bounds ahead of the competition in a lot of respects, particularly for mobile, right, on a device that's running on battery. The performance is really incomparable. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It really has moved beyond maybe the impression that people had 10, 20 years ago of Apple being sort of a bastion of in marketing or creative roles, people who are designers and that sort of thing. I think that's really outdated at this point, right? The modern Apple and the reality of today is all kinds of people in all kinds of roles, from everything from executive to very technical developer roles to just your standard business productivity use cases, all benefit from using Apple devices and prefer using those.
Yeah, we're really seeing a top-down and bottom-up demand for Apple devices in organizations, and that combined pressure, the market is seeing it, and increased Apple sales, increased Apple in organizations.
Yeah. There's a few things that we'd love to share with you about Kanji and where we're going with our product and our platform. And so if we could bring the slides back up again, then we'll share a little bit with you about some of these future developments and things that are happening with us. Great. So we mentioned this before, device management is the core of what we do. It's the foundation on which we build everything else. Having access to those MDM controls is absolutely essential to managing Apple devices. And so our relationship with Apple is very strong. It's been, I think, a very good development for customers that Apple's taken this approach of working with partners to build on top of the MDM protocol and to implement these solutions for business. And that's allowed us to bring some unique takes to the industry to, like I said, Eric and I have been around for a long time. We've used a lot of the tools that have been around for 10, 20 years. And we saw a real opportunity here at Kanji to do a few things a little bit different to try to improve the experience of the admin who's configuring all these devices and managing the fleet of Apple devices. And so I'm going to have Eric just take us through an overview of the Kanji solution and what that looks like.
Sure. Yeah. So this is what you see when you sign into your Kanji instance. And up on the left, you see kind of the different modules that you have available. We're showing the devices page where you get a quick overview of all the devices that are enrolled. You see you can see the devices that are in automated device enrollment through Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager that have not yet enrolled in Kanji. But as soon as the user takes the device out of the box, chooses their language, chooses their region, jumps on Wi-Fi. The next screen they'll see is the remote management screen that their organization can manage their device. And that is a key for getting that device managed. And once it's managed, then we can apply all of the security settings and controls, as well as all the things that empower the user to do the things that they need to do to get their work done. And let's go to the next slide. We have a different approach to how to think about managing these devices. We've got a concept called the blueprints. And if you look over on the left, you see the blueprints module is highlighted. And the blueprints is the container of all of the settings, the profiles, everything that makes up the configuration, the desired end state of that device. And we've got all kinds of things in the blueprint that help you secure that device again, and help you make resources available for that device. And at a glance, anyone who comes into the Kanji console and takes a look at a blueprint, you instantly understand how that device is going to be configured. And if that device drifts from your desired end state, Kanji's going to do everything it can to get that device back into compliance with the way that you've configured the blueprint. And it's a breath of fresh air for anyone who's looking at this to be able to instantly understand what's going on. And the blueprint is made of library items that you can configure and apply to various different blueprints. You assign a device to a blueprint, and that device gets the configuration of the blueprints. One of the library items is in the next slide. It's our auto apps. We've got over 100 commonly used business apps where we go out and get the installation asset from the developer. As soon as the developer has an update, within hours, we grab that update, package it back up again, test it out with our automations behind the scenes, make sure that it opens correctly, that there's no additional alerts that appear or anything that's going to get in the way of the user experience. If Rosetta 2 is required to be installed, we automatically install it if it's not already installed. We install any additional profiles like PPPC, kernel extension, allow list. We basically do all the things that an admin would have to do in order to get this ready to go to be distributed to Mac computers. And this is an example of solving a problem that every Mac admin around the world faces, and just making it easy so that they don't have to think about that, so that you can focus again on the problems that are unique to your organization. We've been adding one new auto app title to our auto apps list per week for the past year, and it's really exciting to see the new apps that we add, and the celebration from the Mac admins who use Kanji around this.
This same focus on automation applies to the OS updates as well. So it's one of those problems, like you said, Eric, that every admin faces in their role, keeping the OS up to date with the latest version, keeping all the apps up to date. Those are often the most critical pieces to update quickly in order to maintain compliance and to reduce the possibility of any threats or vulnerabilities on the system. Is just staying patched and staying up to date. And so we try to make that as straightforward as we could and streamline that whole experience, so you could set it up like Zoom here, say that you want to enforce it. You could enforce new updates automatically. Kanji is going to provide those updates as soon as they come out, and there's no work, right? We're able to automate that solution for all of our customers, and that frees up time to do other things. If you need to do custom applications specific to your business that aren't part of our catalog, all those tools are available to you, but hopefully you have a little bit more time in your day to tackle those problems that are unique because Kanji's been able to solve the general problem in a way that makes it easier for you and your team to be more productive. We've got some other things coming. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, so you mentioned that's our similar approach for keeping the OS up to date. And that's through our managed OS library item. And we've recently added the feature where if for whatever reason the MDM initiated software update or upgrade doesn't work, rather than banging our head against the desk with that MDM update, we're gonna urge the user to use software update settings or software update preferences to do that update manually. And we're seeing a lot of improvements with software update as macOS matures, and got a lot of confidence in the future of software update, software upgrade with macOS.
Yeah, it's one of those things that every admin wants to be better, and we're doing our part to make it better for our customers. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming. So I mentioned there's 4 additional pillars that we're building on top of the Kanji platform. So it's visibility, vulnerability, endpoint detection and response, and compliance. And so some of these are at different stages of development, but we'll share what we can about each of them as we go through here. So real quickly, visibility is something that's coming later in the year in 2023. There's a couple problems that we're trying to solve here. One is just to be able to collect all of the information that you have about a device and bring it into one place. Again, we think there's something really interesting about combining threat intelligence and vulnerability information with device intelligence and everything that we can understand about the endpoint, both from the MDM protocol and from our own agent. So MDM gives us pretty good coverage of the platform and the endpoint, but not full coverage of everything that admins would like to know. So we supplement that with additional information from our agent. The particular technology that we're interested in delivering here is the ability to get near real-time responses. So you can ask a question about your fleet and get an answer essentially in real time or near real time about the current state of all your devices. We think this will be helpful to folks that are doing threat hunting, that might be looking for a process or an executable on some of their managed endpoints, or might be looking for some other information. We think there's additional use cases as well. Vulnerability is something that is coming very soon. So we have this in early access right now. We have dozens and dozens, I think a couple hundred actually, customers that are looking at this and using it, testing it. The essential feature here is that of all of the installed applications, which could include ones that the admin wants to be installed, but could include ones that the user chose to add or install, and also includes applications that are part of the platform. If there's a known vulnerability in that software, we pull the information from the National Vulnerability Database, which provides us with details about the exposure there, what that vulnerability is, and the NVD assigns a CVSS score, which includes several different components. I won't go into the full detail here, but that score is an indication of the criticality of that vulnerability and the threat that it represents to your organization. So generally speaking, you should pay attention to things that are 7 and higher. If you're into the 8s and 9s, it's something you really want to look at right now. And it goes all the way up, to 10. So, these are moments when you want to stop what you're doing and take a look at what's going on here. The screen here just shows the idea of vulnerabilities that were detected, how many devices are affected by that vulnerable application, what the CVSS score is, and that allows your team to focus their attention on what they want to do. So if you look at a specific vulnerability, you would see the detail that's being provided. Here we're showing the list of affected devices, and you could sort that list and take a look at it in order to take action. Eric, anything to add about vulnerability management before we move on? Okay, fair enough. Well, I know you'll have a lot to say about EDR. So this is the next pillar for Kanji, endpoint detection and response. This is looking at, well, just to back up one step, right? Different from vulnerability, which is software that you intended to install on your devices, but has a known vulnerability on it. Endpoint detection and response is really looking for threats that you did not intend to be present on your endpoints, that you actively want to remove and or quarantine. So EDR here will look for malware and other potentially unwanted programs, pups, and identify those so that the software can take action and block that known threat from running. So Eric, why don't you walk us through what we're seeing on the screen here?
So we use MacKeeper as a demo a lot. It's an easy malware to download, or it's easy potentially wanted program to download. As you just go to that website, download the installer, and as soon as the installer, as soon as the disk image opens and the installation package is available, the Kanji agent recognizes that file action, recognizes that that file is potentially a wanted program, and can take action depending on how you've configured your avert library item for endpoint detection response. You can either quarantine it or just have an alert in Kanji. So you can either protect, which is an immediate quarantine. So even if the user downloads something, maybe inadvertently, maybe goes to a site and clicks something that they shouldn't have clicked on, they won't be able to do anything with that bad file. It will be immediately quarantined. Or you could choose to just detect. So instead of protect, detect. So just, if you're trying this out, if you want to see what actions might be taken, but not actually stop a user from doing something, you can do that, detect. And we've got lots of features in there. So if someone in your organization downloads something that is quarantined, but you don't want that to be quarantined, you can release that so that the user can actually use that item. And what's super powerful about our EDR solution is that it's the same agent. It's the same agent on Mac that manages the device, also handles the scanning of file events, making sure that devices, that files that appear on that Mac aren't malware or pups. And
yeah, and I think that ties into something we were talking about earlier, where being hooked into the native platform for Apple, the native APIs and that experience is really valuable to the end user and the admin. But here, right, EDR really highlights the importance of using those native platform APIs and tools, not only for the experience, but for performance and for control and having extensive ability to take action on the device. So we built our agent using Swift, Apple's programming language. It's type safe, memory safe. It's a really good language for building security tools in, and it's extremely performant on Apple devices. We're using the endpoint security framework that Apple provides on device for doing those file event monitoring and responding to those. So we've seen some real valuable performance gains in our approach compared to some competitors that are trying to build cross-platform tools and share as much code as they can across multiple platforms. There's a cost to that approach that we can see when we run our performance benchmarks side by side against some of these other solutions. But we also feel really confident that we're going to be ready for any changes that Apple makes when they update their operating system. Eric mentioned WWDC is coming June, is it 8th this year? I think that's the right Monday. And yeah, we know there's going to be changes that we'll need to respond to, but by using what Apple provides natively as the foundation for our tooling, for our security product, we think there's a real advantage to customers in performance and readiness and being able to transition quickly. Now, I've been holding off showing the UI for some of the configuration that Eric was talking about because I wanted to hit this point about the agent and the technology, Eric, that you were mentioning. But I think there's also another advantage to the admin in having the tool integrated into the device management platform. So when we look at the screen, there's not a lot here to configure. So why is that?
How much complexity do you need? What you want to do is either protect or detect. There's not a lot more that you want to do, and we want to provide a straightforward solution where your job isn't to fiddle around in a website. Your job is to enable your users to get their work done in a secure fashion.
There's a lot of jobs that you don't have to do, right? You don't have to deploy a new agent. Agent fatigue is a real problem with a lot of IT teams that I talk to. They're stacking agent on agent on agent in order to meet their goals, to respond to the requirements of the business. And it takes a lot of time. It's yet another tool to deploy. That's already done for you with Kanji. Kanji is already there managing the device. The agents there, getting the configuration there is part of Kanji. And then setting the mode is about the only decision that you need to make here, because so much of that initial setup and deployment, all those problems are already solved for you.
And
we just introduced this.
And it's just the same. It's not a different website to go to. It's a different module, and that's huge.
We've just announced this. It's in general availability for all customers that have a US-based instance of Kanji. So most of our friends and customers in the APAC region have a US-based instance. And so this is available for you to try. Talk to your Kanji rep, talk to Mac Center about it, and they can get you going on taking a look. Now, the last thing that we have here is compliance. This is also coming later in the year, but this is where we pull all of this together, where you're trying to achieve compliance with whatever standard that it might be. In Australia, I know about Essential 8. Here in the US, it could be SOC 2, it could be CIS level 1 or level 2, could be CMMC or ISO 27001. Any of these standards that you're trying to use as a benchmark to make sure that your business is protected and that you're doing the things that make sense for your organization to be proactive about protecting the org. And so we can combine now the device management controls that we have, the security controls that are being enforced at a really low level with MDM, vulnerability information from the installed applications, threat intelligence from malware and pups, and bring all of that together so you can craft a compliance policy for your organization that addresses your needs. So if you want to comply with Essential 8, or if you want to comply with your own goals for your company, you can design that policy to allow you to get a scorecard and say, these devices are currently compliant with our policy. As they drift out of compliance, the ability to recognize that and find opportunities to enforce controls or to put policies into place that will help you maintain that security posture or the compliance status that you're looking for. So four pillars, right? Visibility, vulnerability management, EDR, and compliance. And our view here at Kanji is that this is something new. There's a bunch of really great point solutions that are available in the marketplace today to address these needs. We see an opportunity to do something a little bit different and maybe something a little special here by pulling them all together in a way that allows IT and InfoSec to work together to tear down that wall that we're talking about, but to help organizations be better able to enable their users to be secure and productive. That's the goal. Protect the enterprise, help the user be productive, bring all of that together. So thank you for your time and attention. Thanks to Mark and Mac Center for having us.
Thanks, guys. That was great content, great insights in terms of, I guess, an understanding of the role that Apple plays within the workplace, the types of tools that modern organizations are going to be looking for to be able to help enable that success, and the way that Kanji brings all of that together in a really streamlined, simple way. And so it should be no surprise. It should be no surprise that for a lot of successful deployments of Apple devices, or really any endpoint, does require that completely aligned shared vision and strategy between IT, security, and end users. So having a tool that can address all of those requirements to each of those stakeholders, while still providing clear feedback controls, is essential in terms of enabling that success. And so for a lot of environments that are introducing Apple into their workplace or have a scaling Apple fleet, we really believe that Kanji is the perfect solution to be able to deliver those successes with minimal complexity and as little friction as possible. And so we're really excited by the partnership that we have enabled, the partnership that we are building, and the collaboration between our sales team, our technical team, and the various teams at Kanji. And so we'd love to be able to talk to customers that are looking to bring a solution like Kanji into their workplace, or for customers that have Kanji already, how we can help unlock device harmony with those the additional tools that are coming into play as well. And so if you'd like to learn more, we have some information up on the screen. If you want to learn more about Kanji, we'd love to be able to do a demonstration, talk through the feature set and how Kanji can help your organization. Email kanji@maccenter.com.au. If you'd like to learn more about Mac Center and additional services that we can provide across Apple integration in the workplace, or any of other solutions, email applesolutions@maccenter.com.au. And with that, thank you so much to both Weldon and Eric for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, your expertise, and your insights. And look forward to catching up with you soon next time you're back here in Australia.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone.